All right, man, peace. So, Steve Kerr, the coach of the NBA super team, the Golden State Warriors, recently made the news for allowing many of his current players to coach the team instead of him. He claims that it's due to the team no longer listening to him or being receptive to his statements. He states that they're quote unquote tired of hearing his voice and that he's also tired of hearing his own voice. I've heard certain members of the mainstream sports media speak about this issue, and I was surprised to not hear any of them broach the subject that perhaps he's setting up a retirement at the end of the season. It's very obvious to me that Steve Kerr is considering retirement, if not at the end of this season, definitely at the end of next season. He's a person who has gone through a series of debilitating injuries to his back. I believe that he had spinal surgery a few years ago. He's had issues where he's actually had to take a leave of absence from the team. He was recently under attack by LeVar Ball for being a quote-unquote Milli Vanilli coach, meaning he's not really doing the coaching that has been attributed to him. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
How about letting the players actually run the huddles for this game? He takes the grease board and he hands it to Andre Iguodala. Guess who's coaching the timeouts and the huddles tonight?
I think that Steve Kerr is someone who's a little desperate right now. When I say desperate, I mean that all great coaches, all great leaders are a bit paranoid by nature. Because to be a great coach or a great leader, you have to be a three-dimensional thinker. You have to see things 5-6 steps ahead. I believe that Steve Kerr understands that this playoff run is going to be very difficult for his team. And if they go into the playoffs with a laissez-faire mentality, they can get knocked out of the playoffs. It almost happened to them in 2016 when they went down 3-1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were able to, by a miracle, win that series. And then had a miracle happen to them the other way because they fell into a laissez-faire mentality when they went up 3-1. So this is something that happens to the Golden State Warriors. That's their one weakness, their Achilles heel, is that mentally they can get a little distant from what their objective is. They can get a little detached. And that's a trickle down from their leader, or who's supposed to be their leader as a player, Steph Curry, who sometimes fades in and out of focus while he's on the court. That cost him Game 7 when he decided to throw the basketball behind his back. It cost him in Game 3 of the 2016 finals when he decided to not show up for whatever reason. Maybe somebody turned him off. Who knows? When I say turned him off, I'm talking about his handler. I still have no explanation for why he was so foggy-eyed in that game. I believe that Steve Kerr knows that he has to push some buttons early, because if they have to face the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round, or say the Minnesota Timberwolves even in the second round, and then the Houston Rockets in the third round, it's going to be very, very difficult. One can make the case that those may be the two most difficult teams that they will have faced in their entire playoff run, including the Cleveland Cavaliers of 2016. So we're going to see what happens. And I do believe that Steve Kerr is setting up a retirement either at the end of this year or next year. The great Larry Bird once said that he believes that no coach should stay with a team for more than 3 years because the team will start to tune you out. LeVar Ball once again called Steve Kerr the Milli Vanilli of NBA coaches. I did a video on that. I disagreed with LeVar. I understand what LeVar is getting at, but all great coaches will always have the effect that they brought to their team diminish because their detractors will state that, well, you had all that talent. Well, what a great coach does is he maximizes the talent that he has. So if a great coach has great talent, you're going to have a dynasty. That's what happens. Any great coach you can name, I can name great players that they had. So Steve Kerr, what he did was he didn't crash the Ferrari. So give him credit for that. But as Larry Bird stated, most teams start to tune coaches out after 3 years. And I believe that Steve is either going to retire after this year, or if he chooses to come back, it's because he's going to go for the three-peat and then retire. But I definitely don't think that he's going to be the coach any longer than at the end of next season.
Tonight, the Golden State Warrior players.
I have not reached them for the last month. They're tired of my voice. I'm tired of my voice, you know.
Yeah, Steve. You haven't reached them for the last month. They're 44-13 or 45-13, whatever their record is. Team is over 30 games over 500, and they're not even at the 60-game mark. I mean, these are first world problems that you have, Steve.
You know, it's been a long haul these last few years, and I wasn't reaching them, and we just figured it's probably a good night to.
That's a good little task for Draymond. Draymond is that kid at the back of your fourth grade class who's going to try to distract everyone until he gets attention or until the teacher gives him the attention that he wants, because he's most likely not getting it at home. Draymond is an intelligent brother, you can tell, but he probably has never gotten the proper discipline in his life because he grew up in a home with the alpha female archetype. So all he's known his whole life is to act out whenever he faces adversity. So he will be a wild card in these playoffs. You can believe that. As will the brother he's directly in front of, Kevin Durant. No matter how talented Kevin Durant is, he will be a wild card in these playoffs. They're going to hit moments of stress and adversity, and I expect both Draymond and Kevin Durant to have a mental breakdown at some point. So we'll see if Steph and Klay, who come from strong patriarchal backgrounds, can balance it out, and if Steve Kerr can rein them in. Please keep in mind, as I've stated previously, Steve Kerr also comes from a CIA background, so I'm not really surprised at his attempt to utilize some type of a psychological ploy on his team.
You know, pull a trick out of the hat and do something different.
I hear you. Hell yeah. It's disrespectful.
No, what's disrespectful is the effort that the Phoenix Suns give on a nightly basis. Don't worry about what they're doing. Worry about why you guys are whack juice.
I don't think it's hard to coach those guys, though. So I don't think anybody can do it.
Well, Steve Kerr could say it's not hard to do what you do. You could pick up 5 guys off the street, and they could be 40 games under 500 at the All-Star break. All right? So, you know, just be happy you in the NBA.
So there's that. What's going on, party people? Welcome to First Take on a Tuesday. Molly Kerr here in Bristol. Max and Stephen A. are on the road. Gentlemen, good morning, good day. How are we?
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Excellent. Let's get right into it, guys. As we just heard, Steve Kerr handing over the keys, but just for a night. During timeouts in the game, Kerr handed his clipboard over to Andre Iguodala, David West, Draymond Green, and as you just heard, Stephen A., Suns guard Troy Daniels felt it was very disrespectful. Do you agree?
My response is no, but more importantly, who cares what he thinks? Who cares?
Exactly. Troy Daniels and the Phoenix Suns, they really just need to be quiet. They've been the laughingstock of the NBA for a while now.
Who cares what anybody on the Phoenix Suns think? They stink right now. They're 18-40. Thank God Devin Booker wasn't a part of this game. He didn't play because I wouldn't wish that on him because he's a baller. He can ball.
Well, he's great on offense, but he's failed to show that he can be a high impact player overall for his team. He does not play particularly good defense. Sometimes he tries, but he seems to save most of his energy for the offensive end.
The fact of the matter is that Steve Kerr did it because he was able to do it because of the level of competition that they were going up against. They get no sympathy from me if you're the Phoenix Suns. I'm sorry. Get a better organization, get a better team, and then come talk to me.
Agreed.
Eric Bledsoe is gone. Greg Monroe is gone. Devin Booker is injured. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, give me a break.
That's one thing that I will say about Devin Booker, and he is one of the players that I have that are quote-unquote on the rise. But he does need to be watched because he's shown that his body can be prone to going through physical breakdowns. He does seem to have some structural issues with his body. No disrespect to him. So we'll see if he can stay healthy in the years to come.
But I will say this. I appreciate where Steve Kerr was coming from. There's going to be some people that believes he was grandstanding, obviously.
And sometimes them little frail body dudes in the NBA, they go through a stretch, especially in their early 20s, where they struggle with their health. Steph went through it. It just means that Devin Booker is going to have to commit himself even more in the gym.
They believe it's much ado about nothing, and you know what? And let them do something like that in the playoffs, in the finals, and then come talk to us. That's their mentality. That is not my mentality. When I watched what Steve Kerr did last night, the reason why I had no problem with it is because of his explanation. He acknowledged, look, they're not hearing me. They haven't been hearing me for quite some time. They're tired of hearing my voice. I'm tired of hearing my voice.
All that spells out to me is retirement. I think that Steve Kerr is contemplating retirement. I think that he may be speaking with the Golden State Warrior brass about potentially stepping down. And maybe he's prepping his players, especially in the event that they face some form of adversity in the playoffs, that they show some form of resourcefulness and teaming together. Because there's no way in the world that their situation is as dire as he's making it out to be. But oftentimes great coaches will do that. They'll play the sky is falling game with their team. With 35 games over 500 at the All-Star break, but let's act like we're in danger of not winning the championship. Now, Golden State can act a little too cool for school. They don't have that alpha male persona as their best player, like a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, someone along those lines. So they have to galvanize their team in a different way.
That's a very valid point that you don't hear too many people in positions of authority acknowledge and admit, particularly publicly. Usually it's something that they try to disguise or gloss over, or they try to overcome it by being more forceful and a bit, just a bit more incendiary if necessary at particular moments in time. That's not what he was doing here.
I think that he respects his team too much to turn into a yeller and a person who goes on a tirade. They've accomplished a little bit too much to utilize that tactic. I think that by the time all you're doing is resorting to yelling, it's certainly time to step down. Because when you have to yell, it's because the person's not listening to you when you speak. If someone's not listening to you when you speak, it's time for you to have a nice day. Head on out. I see Kerr spending more time yelling at the refs than I do his own team. I think that he's smart enough to understand that the type of players that he has would not react or respond well to yelling. Draymond and Kevin Durant are very, very sensitive, and Steph and Clay tend to be extremely passive and reserved and placid. You don't really need to yell at them. All you have to do is show them.
He's saying we're the reigning defending world champions. We won 2 of the last 3 finals. We've been to 3 consecutive NBA finals. We've played a lot of basketball games along the way. And guys can get tired of hearing your voice, so you have to remind them of the fact that this is their team, that they are ultimately the ones accountable for our success or lack thereof. So let's put them right in the lines then, and let's let them coach and get more actively involved. Because maybe then they'll have even a deeper appreciation, not just for what the coaches do, but for what we're trying to get them to do. And I think that it was a wise move on Steve Kerr's part, and I had no problem with it whatsoever, Max.
I don't know how wise it was. I think that it was an attempt to be unorthodox. Sometimes the Golden State Warriors like to conduct themselves as if they're the smartest guy in the room, quote unquote. So they'll do things, and they'll dare to do things that no other team would try, because they know that they have a longer rope than most other teams because of their success and the talent level on their team.
It's not disrespectful at all. Steve Kerr is trying to get his guys going. The Warriors have their eyes on the prize. They're not thinking about the Phoenix Suns. They're trying to get the ship right. They haven't been playing up to their standards, and it's been a little bit. And Steve Kerr understands that it becomes, as they say, white noise. It gets drowned out when you hear the same voice saying the same thing.
The main thing that the Warriors have to be concerned with is their bench. Patrick McCaw has taken a step back. Iguodala, since signing the large contract, has taken a step back. JaVale McGee has gone back to Shaqtin' a Fool mode. Many of the guys coming off their bench have not been adequate. Other than David West in limited minutes, Nick Young, as usual, is mercurial. You don't know what you're going to get from him from night to night. He's out there trying to take shots away from Steph Curry. So that's what he needs to be concerned with. And the fact that they don't really have a big man who can exert any type of physicality and also has athleticism. Pachulia has physicality but no athleticism. McGee has athleticism but no physicality. So when they face a team like Oklahoma City with the Steven Adams, that's going to be a major, major problem for them. Like I don't think that people realize how much of a problem the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to pose, for the Golden State Warriors come playoff time. That may be Oklahoma City's downfall, matter of fact, is a lack of poise. Because if Golden State can keep the games close, it's going to be up to Westbrook. But you know what I like about Oklahoma City? With the addition of Paul George, I think that he's going to add that poise that Westbrook normally misses. And Paul George is not known for his clutch performance. But I think that's similar to a Chris Paul, James Harden. They're going to take a lot of pressure off of each other.
Year over year, it's largely to the same cast of characters, the same people, the same players. So he wanted to see, hey, maybe a variety of reasons, not just a new voice. Maybe look what it is to coach.
You know a team don't respect you when they pass the ball around like that and they hit the big man right under the basket and he kicks out for three. They have no respect for you.
Guys, look at it from the other side. Whatever his specific reason, Kerr thought that this was a good move to get his team going. They are trying to win a championship eventually. Now, would he do this against an elite team? I don't know, maybe not.
Well, most certainly he wouldn't do it against an elite team, because I think that the understanding would be that he wouldn't have to do it against an elite team because he would expect his team to be focused. But I think that that also is a guesstimation that he probably shouldn't make, because I've seen Golden State against many of the more elite teams this year, and they've been mentally unfocused in those games as well. They've been blown out by the Oklahoma City Thunder twice. And in their games against the Rockets, they have not performed totally up to par. So, we'll see.
Maybe he looks at the Suns and says, it's one of the worst teams in the NBA. I can do it against this team.
And if I were a Golden State Warrior fan, I would be more concerned with the Oklahoma City Thunder than the Houston Rockets. Before the season, I stated that the Oklahoma City Thunder were going to be a major threat to the Golden State Warriors, because I could see that the level of physicality that they were going to bring, their ability to slow down the game, it's really going to come down to Westbrook. If Westbrook has finally matured and learned how to master pace and cadence and turns it into a half-court game instead of trying to run and gun with the Golden State Warriors, they can beat I could see them beating Golden State even. I wouldn't put money on it. I would still favor Golden State, obviously. But it wouldn't shock me. If the Oklahoma City Thunder were to win that series in 6, it wouldn't shock me.
Suns have terrible ownership. You know, I get on Dan Gilbert a lot, and he deserves it. I get on Jim Dolan a lot, and he's just the worst. But Sarver's right up there with those guys, or down there with those guys. Terrible. And the Phoenix Suns is a result of, fish rots from the head down. And what they have is a rotten fish head. That's a rotten organization as a result. And they're no good year after year. And so, yeah, Steve Kerr can say, yeah, that's a win. I can do it against that team.
It's a big danger when two of the most important components on your team are as mentally fragile as Kevin Durant and Draymond Green are. I'm just putting that out there.
If that's the case, what do you tell Phoenix? Get your game up. That's not bad sportsmanship like some high school team that's blowing another team out and running.
Yeah, but you know what? You wouldn't even tell the Phoenix Suns to get their game up. That's like a scrimmage. Like, Phoenix can get as mad as they want. They're basically a half step above a D-League team. Like, if the Phoenix Suns were to play against the best D-League team right now in a 7-game series, that D-League champion would beat them at least one game. I promise you that.
Running up the score, that's completely different. That's a team working on themselves. And if they use you as a kind of trial horse to work something against, and you don't like it because it points out that you're not good enough, too bad. They're not thinking about you. Steve Kerr's job is not to protect your feelings about how sorry your team is or your play is. It just shouldn't factor into his equation, into his thinking about his own team. So no, it was not disrespectful for Steve Kerr to do that, Stephen A. It's a lot like touchdown celebrations. You don't want him to celebrate? Don't let him in the end zones.
And let me also say this, just to add on to Kellerman's little rant there. It's very common for teams that have players coming back from injury to have them play their first game against the Phoenix Suns. That says a lot. When teams look at their schedule and they decide to bring a certain player back against a certain team, particularly if it's a star player, they normally will have them they normally will bring that player back against a scrub team. And normally it's the Phoenix Suns. I think, if I remember correctly, one of you brothers can correct me, the San Antonio Spurs brought back Kawhi when he tried to play this year against the Phoenix Suns. Like, either them or the Mavericks.
Oh, same thing here.
Well, let's also add to the fact that the Phoenix Suns did play a significant role in disrespecting themselves. I mean, they lost by 46 points. They got outscored by 18 points in a fourth quarter.
Exactly. When you lose an NBA game by 40 plus points, you made no attempt on playing defense. None.
When you know garbage time had arrived and the Golden State Warriors didn't have anyone of significance on the court. You also have a rookie that's a top 5 pick in Josh Jackson, picked 4th overall, who I like personally, but I don't appreciate the 40% shooting on the season, and I certainly don't appreciate his 4 for 18 shooting last night.
Well, it's okay because his name is not Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball is the only rookie who is not allowed to have a bad game. Josh Jackson and De'Aaron Fox and a lot of these other rookies, they're allowed to be terrible. Only Lonzo Ball is not allowed to have a bad game. All right. It's taken the liberal sports media about 40 games to even address the Markelle Fultz issue. All right, or Markelle Fultz, pardon me. But every game they're watching Lonzo Ball like they're waiting for the groundhog to come out the tunnel and see his shadow.
Which ended up being at about 22%. If you're going to lose games, at least show us that you're developing young players and that there's some upside to this. Again, I'm very, very happy that Devin Booker was not playing last night because this kid is a baller. He is something special.
That's why that's the game that he needed to be playing in. So if I were a Phoenix Suns fan, I wouldn't say that I'm happy that he didn't play. He needs to get experience against top-notch teams like Golden State so that whatever he can glean from that experience, he can try to apply to his own team. I don't think that Devin Booker is long for the Phoenix Suns, though.
And I think that when Devin Booker's time arrives, Sarver and those boys better look for somebody else because he's gonna get up out of there quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I agree. He'd be perfect in Boston. If I was the Boston Celtics, I would think about contacting them, the Phoenix Suns. He'd be perfect. A guy with instant offense like that, great jump shot, mid-range, take it to the basket, can spell Kyrie. In a system like that, he could improve his defense. I would package Tatum and a couple of first-round draft picks, and maybe sweeten the pot a little bit to see if I can get a Devin Booker.
They better trade him and get some value for him eventually because the Phoenix Suns don't look like they're on a path to anywhere.
Don't look like? It's obvious they're not going anywhere, Steve. What are you talking about, brother?
No, and that's the point. If they're upset, if a player's upset on the Suns because they can be used to test something that another coach wants to do, the coach's responsibility is not to consider their feelings about that. The coach's responsibility is his team and what he's doing. He didn't run up the score, do anything that people would say, that's the unwritten rules. That's not what it's about. It's not about the Suns. It's about the Warriors. And so, no, it was not meant to be disrespectful.
Well, it is about the Suns because had they not been playing the Suns, they would not have utilized a strategy like that. But was it meant to be overtly disrespectful? No. But you can be disrespectful even when you don't mean to be. But the point of disrespect is, does the person or the entity that you were disrespectful to have the power to levy some type of taxation for your disrespect? That's all life is about, is power. And when someone that you disrespect does not have the power to make you be apologetic, the only way that they can gain the power is if they're not scared of the penalty for standing up for themselves. So in layman's terms, if the Phoenix Suns don't like it, either they can play better or they can start a fight.
Guys, let's keep it going.
And if it was, who cares?
I agree, because I certainly don't care. But it was interesting from the perspective that it's very obvious to me that Steve Kerr is introducing little overtures that he is considering to step down. So you brothers watch for that. At the end of either this season or next season, Steve Kerr is going to step down. But anyway, peace.